Awesome. Good morning. My name is Dayawanti. I'm one of the coordinators on the team for the California Alliance for Data Science Education. So the California Alliance is an organization that aims to overcome the impediments to streamlining data science education in the state. Our goals include optimizing the articulation process for community colleges to UCs and CSUs, and assisting institutions in planning data science curricula and programs that are providing access to a host of resources. So we've put together a board for CADSE, which consists of 16 institutions across California and meets quarterly. We aim for this to be the tight-knit group that drives the organization, takes initiative in identifying and solving issues brought up, including key pain point areas like transfer curriculum and math requirements for the major. We also held a large-scale conference which had 149 attendees from 65 institutions across California, including 8 UCs, 14 CSUs, and over 30 community colleges and legislative bodies like the California Department for Education, the UC Office of the President, and the CSU Chancellor's Office. We had presentations by professors, Microsoft, and Women in Data Science. You can access the report and the website for the conference on the links in the deck for more information on that. So over the past year, we've been working on multiple really exciting and impactful projects. We've partnered with UCOP to work on transfer procedure and crafted policy memos addressed to CS and math faculty and articulation officers to start a conversation about broadening access to DS education in the state. We are currently conducting an informal survey of data science and have put together a series of summary decks at the UC, CSU, and which provide a holistic and concise view of the DS education landscape in each of these aforementioned systems. We're also working on helping connect California community colleges. I think there's an echo. To UCOP and partnering with institutions like 2i2c.org and CloudBank to provide Jupyter hubs for community colleges, and with Microsoft to provide our member institutions with opportunities like the Visiting Instructor Program for data science faculty, which will be extended to 2 to 4 professors at California institutions. So going forward, we want to focus on capacity building at CCs, formalizing the UCOP and CADSE partnership, and getting the high-level UC campus DS plan approved by BORS, which is an A2G and articulation board, by July. We're also planning on putting together a workshop that is aimed at articulation officers and college counselors to help increase our collective understanding of DS articulation. And in the long term, we want to expand CADSE to industry, specifically understanding what companies are looking for in data scientists, and then creating internship and research opportunities in the tech sector, government, and nonprofit organizations that advance social good. Thank you so much for listening, and we invite you to join our network. Our email ID is linked below on the slide deck. Especially if you're based in California, please do reach out, and thank you so much once again.
Dayawanti. And thanks to the students for keeping a bunch of this going throughout the year and keeping our slide decks growing. I'm going to move on to Erin Frankel, who will give us an overview of the UCs.
I still have a grayed out share screen.
Man. Well, unfortunately, let me drop out, and I think it should work. I think we just have too many people in the session.
I'll need to read. Oh, there. Yeah, it came right back. Okay. Sorry to have evicted Eric. I will. There we are. People can see my screen and hear me. Okay. So I wanted to give an overview of data science at UC campuses today. Myself, my name is Erin Frankel. I'm an assistant teaching professor at UCSD, and I'm chair of the data science undergraduate program that we have there. So data science has a presence at all UCs, and in a variety of ways. And so I'm actually going to go through sort of these efforts instead of by campus, thematically, and speak about the various ways that data science exists on various campuses, and what different programs can look like, as well as what challenges exist, and what people's long-term plans are. Attached to the slide deck, which I know will be made available after the panel, there are a mix of institutional level details that you can browse through as well. And then lastly, just a caveat is that this is a very incomplete accounting of efforts, and apologies for that. And I would love to hear if I've missed anything. We would love to know, what, really like as much as we can about what exists out there today. Generally, data science across all the UCs, we have everything from full-on majors and minors in their own academic units, to concentrations within existing programs, as well as just courses that are related to data science, or specifically our data science courses, that have popped up in departments across campuses. And so I'm going to walk through and look at a few of these. And to start, I want to look at two of the major data science majors and minor programs that are in big standalone programs, and that's UC Berkeley and UCSD. UC Berkeley, of course, as we've seen in the past few days, some of the structure in the courses in their program, right? Their program has existed since 2018 in its own division, the Division of Computing, Data Science, and Society, but isn't really a department. It leverages shared instruction from computer science and statistics. Berkeley's major and minor program, so specifically looking at the program and the requirements for the program, there are core data science courses, right? Data 8 and Data 100, which we've heard a lot about over the years, that are offered as special data science classes. And then there are also a growing list of data science electives that are special to the data science program itself and not other departments. Things like systems, data mining, and human context and ethics, courses like this. The program as well draws from a huge number of courses from a huge number of departments across campus, and that's really one of its strengths, is sort of bridging subjects across campus. And it's of course a huge program at almost 1,500 majors and 700 minors. UCSD's approach is really different in that it is an academic unit. It's also its own department, which has its own faculty, as opposed to shared, drawing from faculty across campus. And most of its core courses and electives are actually drawn from within the department itself, and they've sort of rolled their own courses there. It is a large major as well, though not as large as Berkeley's, at about 800 students in the major and 170 in the minor. Another model that you see across campuses is the sort of multiple departments getting together and starting their own data science bachelor's degree. And two of the places that you see this, for example, are Irvine and Riverside. Irvine actually has one that has existed for quite a long time, since 2015, and it's a major in the School of Information and Computing. is sponsored by the Statistics and the Computer Science Department. And of course, the Statistics and Computer Science pairing is a very natural one that you see quite a bit, across the country. Here in these cases, all of the data science courses, right, are created within these home departments, and within UC's itself, you see, for example, Irvine has a pretty large program with 160 students or so, whereas Riverside has a lot of interest in their new program, but due to the pandemic and the newness of the program, they took a first small cohort of just 20. But in these cases, this pairing between math and stat, new courses are created within those home departments. And you see something similar as well at Santa Barbara with at UCLA with multiple departments getting together, but in this case, it's between math and stats, where they have a bachelor's in data theory. And of course, the flavor of the major is very much influenced by the departments that are getting together and collaborating. And UCSD has their statistics department, the statistics and applied probability department has sort of gone solo to sponsor their own bachelor's in statistics and data science within their department themselves. There are also concentrations in existing majors in data science is another common place that we see data science coming up. For example, at UC Davis, statistics has a concentration in statistical data science. UC Merced in their applied mathematical sciences major also has a concentration. UCSD, for example, even though there's their own data science major, it didn't come out of nowhere. A number of existing majors have concentrations in data science, as well as actually UCLA in the computer science department has an emphasis in data computing. And of course, this is a very incomplete list, but this just is to show that all these are not mutually exclusive. The data science courses, so beyond concentrations and full-on degrees in data science, we also see data science courses popping up around campuses, or they've actually existed for quite a long time to begin with. And these courses may serve a variety of reasons, and one that I would really like to highlight is the hosting data science courses or developing data science courses intended to get the broader campus community involved in data science. And really Berkeley is, leading the way and doing this in a broad variety of ways. So Data 8, of course, is sort of taught, as a course to bring everybody under the umbrella of data science and get an introduction to data science. But they've also developed the connectors and modules program, which allows subjects that may not be highlighting data science at an introductory level to be able to highlight it in a variety of ways, either by offering their own small data science focused courses, or inserting data science material into existing courses, which is what modules try to do. They also have plans for data 2, 4, and 6 with social science and humanities emphases to sort of develop different pathways into data science. UCSD has a long history in cognitive science of actually hosting data science for the entire campus to get the student body interested in data science. And we also have plans for a data and society minor in the works. And so this is really one one way that a lot of campuses, right, have focused on bringing data science, right, to the community as a whole and getting interest in the subject. Okay, what are the challenges in bringing data science to campus? The themes across all the campuses is one, staffing specialized and interdisciplinary courses. It's very hard. It's hard to staff math and computer science courses to begin with, and so mixing those two fields is that much more difficult. The time to degree issues, time to graduation, large prerequisite chains in these interdisciplinary STEM courses is difficult, as well as timing project-based courses like capstones. One that many of us really care about here is articulation from community colleges. There are many new courses here that don't exist, and so our transfer students, are typically having to spend quite a bit more time and stay longer in order to graduate currently. And then, of course, there's scaling up in enrollment pressures due to the popularity of the subject. And another one I really want to highlight are achievement gaps. Data science inherits a lot of the difficulties that we have in STEM generally, and it's particularly acute for underrepresented minority students. One nice thing about the approach of sort of broadening pathways into data science is that we actually do see that we have a higher representation of women participating in the subject than is what is typical in computer science. What are the long-term aims for data science on campus? So one is to focus on these big challenges we talked about on the previous slide. Broadening campus exposure to data science is something that most campuses are really aiming to try to do. Create and grow these data science units, trying to actually hire faculty that can teach these courses. Create and broaden application area requirements, which again helps sort of increase the relevance of data science across campus and broaden pathways in different ways, as well as strengthen industry initiatives, because this is a new topic, a new subject across, not only the academy, but industry, sort of understanding how we can coordinate the two so that we know that we're teaching relevant skills. Thank you. And these are just some of the issues, and hopefully we have some time to speak about these in questions later.
Thank you so much, Professor Frankel. Now we're going to be hearing from our CSU panelists, Professor Glanz and Professor Ganner. So I think I'm going to share your screens.
I can go ahead and give it a shot, Judith, if you want.
Okay. I think Erin needs to unshare first.
I'm grayed out. Let me leave and then come back.
No, I think you might be fine.
Okay.
Did that work?
Yep.
Cool. Oops. Great. All right, so thank you very much for being here and for having me. I'm really excited to be able to kind of kick off the CSU-wide perspective on data science education. I'm an associate professor in the statistics department at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. Judith's going to be talking after me. She's at CSU Monterey Bay, so we're really excited to give you kind of our specialized perspectives and things from our institutions. And then at the end, Judith will give you kind of a nice summary of what's going on across the CSU. So for those of you maybe a little less familiar with what the CSU is, this is the California State University system. It's the nation's largest four-year public university with 23 campuses across California. We have around 500,000 students enrolled annually across these campuses, with enrollments ranging from around 6,500 to 40,000. And as of 2021, we have 4 million alumni. So it's an amazingly large and awesome system. Like I mentioned, I'm at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, right there on the Central Coast. One of maybe the big data science related innovations of ours happened in 2014 in the form of what we call a cross-disciplinary studies minor in data science. So this is not your traditional maybe 6-course minor. It's not a complete major or bachelor's degree. It has this kind of special curricular vehicle that the creators ended up calling a cross-disciplinary studies minor in data science. This is an 80 quarter unit program. We're still on quarters here. Effectively owned and offered by the statistics and computer science departments. So there are a few math classes and things like that in this program. And I encourage you to check out the link here maybe later or at some point in time so you can see all of the courses involved in this program. But it's a lot of computer science and statistics with a few newly created courses with a data prefix that include things like the capstone and other things like that that we've heard about in other programs. Our cohort size is around 30 students, or at least that's our target cohort size, but it does vary from year to year, mostly consisting of statistics majors, computer science majors, and math majors. But there are others. It was really exciting a couple of years ago to have a political science major complete this program, which is, I think, kind of a big lift. It's, there are a lot of courses and things like that here. And we currently have an agribusiness, that's AGB, agribusiness major in our program. Like I said, this was started in 2014, and it's definitely still rolling. We're all very excited about it. We have lots of really nice collaborations and faculty working together on this, co-teaching courses and teaching different courses throughout the program. There is a note here I will mention very quickly. There are a plethora of data science related content and things being offered at Cal Poly outside of this, including bachelor's degrees in statistics, mathematics, computer science, and in business. But I don't want to spend maybe as much time on those things. But I think data science does exist in more ways than this CDSM. What are our long-term aims going forward? What isn't, I guess, is the fun way to put it, or how I like to think about it. We have kind of general education-oriented data science for all courses basically in the pipeline right now, both 1 and kind of 2 quarter sequences of data science for all courses. And these are literally meant for kind of everybody on campus. We also are soon to submit a traditional minor in data science, so closer to what you'd imagine as the 6 class or 4 class, something like that, minor in data science. So not the big 80 unit thing that I just mentioned, but then also a bachelor's degree in data science, so a full major program. We'd really like to do all of these things on kind of the non or less academic or program side, really a fully connected campus-wide data science community. And this has kind of been developed a lot more over the last year when a big group of faculty across all of the colleges at Cal Poly kind of got together and have been having a ton of meetings and working groups, committees and conversations about building out both the kind of pedagogical and research collaborations around data science on campus. So kind of reducing the siloedness, right, of data science and things like that. And then finally, possibly a master's degree in data science. There are, again, data science maybe adjacent master's degrees already offered at Cal Poly, but we're looking at possibly an MS in data science. What are the challenges we face? Well, I first want to echo all of the challenges that Alex mentioned. I think all of those things were really important and to my knowledge apply to us as well. But as far as what I could think of when I was kind of going through all of this, scheduling is hard. Staffing was something that Erin brought up, and I'll echo it kind of explicitly here, currently done at the department level at Cal Poly, but our CDSM is taught by both statistics and computer science faculty. And so this can be a bit of a challenge because we have to communicate more than we normally would in scheduling efforts. Like I said, this last year, we've seen a very explicit turnout from faculty across all of the colleges at Cal Poly. So the campus is pretty bought in, at least as far as the faculty are concerned, to the cross-disciplinary nature, the interdisciplinarity of data science, and what that means for everybody. I think we're all pretty sold on how much everybody can benefit and things like that. But this is hard still because there isn't kind of existing machinery and support in all the ways that we'd like. And so we're kind of collaboratively working towards all those things. And so that's something we're continuing to work through. Now I think I'll turn it over to Judith.
Let me just share my screen here. So as Hunter said, I am a professor of statistics at Cal State Monterey Bay, just a couple hours north of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And we are a very different institution. We are only about 25 years old. We have about 7,000 undergraduates, so we're much smaller. We also don't have engineering yet, like Cal Poly does. And so what we sought out to do when we started building our data science minor, it was actually something very similar to what Cal Poly did, but in a very different approach. We had data science sort of housed in computer science. They have a data science concentration since 2015, and they had developed a whole series of courses, but with a lot of programming prereqs. So you had to take at least 2 semesters of programming before you got into any of their data science courses. And then we started a statistics concentration in our mathematics bachelor's degree program also in 2015. And that recently elevated into its own major just 2 years ago. And so we've been sort of building these 2 programs in parallel. And then this past year, we basically worked through, and I saw this question in the chat, worked through coming up with a collaboration on a minor that would serve not just the students in our particular program, so statistics and computer science. That was actually really easy. Computer science students could just do stats minor, stats students could just do computer science minor. But we wanted something that was actually accessible to students from any major. And so we created the data science minor. It was just approved this year, so we'll have our first students starting to come into it next year. And we have 2 pathways sort of structured within the minor itself. That includes a pathway that is sort of more that traditional, you need to take a lot of programming, a lot of math and statistics before you get into these more advanced machine learning classes. And then a pathway that is more general. And we adapted our learning outcomes. We're an outcomes-based institution, but so we adapted our learning outcomes from, oh goodness, I forget, but it was a report from a few years ago. And so we're focusing on 4 minor learning outcomes in statistical computational thinking, algorithms, software foundations, data curation, and model building and assessment. And so one of the things we really tried to do within this minor, and especially within this pathway that would be more for everybody instead of just our traditional computer science statistics majors, was to embed as much into general education as possible. So we already had intro stat as an embedded course, and right now, as much as we would like to create a lower division general ed course in data science, we just honestly don't have the bandwidth for it, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then at the upper division, the CSUs all require certain upper division general education units. And so we had already created a data visualization class. And then as part of this minor, but also for general education, created a computing across the disciplines, which is basically the intro programming class for the general data science pathway. And so that has allowed us to create a pathway for students, and with enough overlap between requirements for their major, other general education requirements, the minor, though it looks large on paper, ends up being just about 12 to 13 units for almost any major across campus, because we were able to overlap it enough to squeeze that in. And that was actually a part of negotiation with administration. So what are some challenges? Well, as I mentioned already, I'm one of 3 tenure track statisticians. I was actually the only tenure track statistician until 2015, and we hired 2 in a row. And we only have 1 tenure track data computer scientist as well. So we're somewhat squeezed. In addition to our major, we have an extremely robust minor plus service courses. And then you have 1 person basically teaching all the courses for computer science. We're very squeezed. And so we're trying to figure out how to train lecturers for teaching lower division courses or even upper division courses. We would love to hire somebody, but that's not in our hands usually. Someone mentioned cross-disciplinary negotiations. And that took a while. I started planning this minor well before the pandemic, and it slowed down with the pandemic, but it took a while to really negotiate what was needed for everybody to feel comfortable with the courses that they're offering, and who was going to enter those courses. And we had very different perspectives from statistics versus computer science on what that looked like. Some other things, linear algebra. We're trying to figure out this, especially not just for our stats majors, computer science majors, but also a bioinformatics program we're working on, as well as a new mechatronics program, engineering program. What is linear algebra? How can we do this in a way that is data minded? And then just recruitment. There's no AST, or that's associates for transfer in statistics or data science. And so that can make it challenging when students come into the program. It squeezes their 2 years that they come into our school. And we have a lot of transfer students, and they're not always sure what data science is, if we're honest. So there's an education component to this as well. But we hope to eventually establish an actual data science concentration in statistics, just to make it easier, almost more for advising than anything else. It exists, it's just formalizing it for students. We're also starting a bioinformatics concentration in biology, which has a lot of overlap with our programs. We want to create some of these cross-disciplinary teaching opportunities. And also, if we can't get an AST, which is a much bigger sort of system-wide negotiation, if we can come up with 2+2 agreements with our local community colleges in our service area, which is our Tri-County area. Those are the students who are guaranteed admissions. So those are some of the things we're looking to do. And we're also starting to talk about 4+1 programs. So 4 years undergrad, 1 year master's. And so that is something we've just started talking about with a few institutions, but it's very new, so it's not on these slides. And so you can see here, there are 23 campuses, and data science is emerging in different ways at these different institutions. This is just an overview of some of them. And if you go into the appendix of these slides, which will be shared, you can see sort of similar information for some other programs of folks that are involved in our alliance. So I think next we have our community colleges.
Hi, everyone. So I think I'm starting, and unfortunately, when I talk, it's apparently the case that many people experience an echo. So if you could mute yourself, maybe that'll help with that. So let me get started here. I'll share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen? I'll assume it's okay. So I am from City College of San Francisco, and I'll quickly go over some of what we've done, and then I'll also talk about some things that are sort of a shared concern across community colleges. So at City College, we have a new course that we've designed that we are launching for the first time in the fall of 2021. It's Math 108, and it's based closely on Data 8. Which we've heard a lot about from UC Berkeley. And of course, we have community college students. And so we really focused in our conversations around launching the course and running the course. What are our students going to need to feel supported in these classes? So for instance, we made it an entry-level course. So for those of you who are familiar with community college lingo, with AB 705, our placement rules changed a lot. So this is a course that is open to literally any student. If they have the lowest tier of placement, they are eligible for this course, Math 108. So really thinking about how can we support them and make sure that they succeed. This is a partnership between math and computer science. And we trained some classified tutors that we're embedding in each section to help with the support aspect. We're offering 3 sections, so that's about 100 students that we'll have space for fall of 2021. Enrollment is slow, and I think my colleague Nathalie will speak a little bit more to that later. Training was an issue, and we were fortunate to secure some strong workforce funds to both develop the course, learn about how to do this course, and provide some training for faculty. And then in the slide deck here, if you wish, I provided our course outline of record if you'd like to check it out. So some of the challenges that we faced. One of the big things that if I had it all to do over again that I wish I'd known more about was the whole timeline and kind of process that would help me plan ahead. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of a rundown of how that all works. So the local curriculum process at a community college, which means just launching the course outline and then having it go through the curriculum process at your college, is close to a year, kind of depending on when you launch it, but it's about a year. After that point, the course exists and you could teach it, but a lot of our students take courses because they satisfy some requirement for them. They transfer to a CSU or they transfer to UC, they articulate to some UC course. They meet some graduation requirements at the CSU level. They meet some IGETC requirements at the UC. And they may also have a CID, which means that if they go to a UC or another community college, that course automatically articulates and is understood. This all takes a long time. So what we're learning is that from the time that you launch the course until you hopefully have all of these things, takes anywhere between 2 and 3 years. So like I said, the local curriculum process is about a year. Between CSU graduation requirement approvals, UC transferability, UC articulation, and then IGETC, that's about another year, provided you don't hit snags in the road. If for some reason your course doesn't get something approved and you have to resubmit, that usually tacks on another year. And then finally, the CID process is one that I'm still learning about. That is the one where the course sort of becomes tagged and is universally recognizable wherever you take it. That is a lengthy process and it takes about 2 years. So if you're planning to sort of think about launching something like this at your college, it may make sense to sort of think 2 to 3 years in advance, from the time that you initially start working on the outline to the time when you start running it and advertising it. Maybe give it 2, maybe even 3 years, so that it can have more of those things that students look for when they decide to take a course. One thing that we've talked some about already that I think it would be good to revisit is this idea of having a repository of information, not just of what are the hurdles, but how does one best overcome them from a community college standpoint? What are the best ways to ensure that your course is going to get approvals for things like CSU graduation requirements? What are the best ways to make sure that your course is getting considered for things like UC transferability in an expeditious manner? Communication among community colleges who are planning to run this kind of thing or offer this sort of course. What are some things that they did that helped in the process? What are some ways that they created their courses that ended up causing challenges, and how would they maybe have avoided those challenges? Cross-system communication is really, really powerful here. And I've learned a lot just from working with my colleagues in this small group about what we could do and how we could change things moving forward to make sure that these processes go more smoothly. Really quickly to wrap up before I hand it over to Nathalie, another thing to think about, of course, is the idea of training faculty. So most community colleges, I'm only saying most because I guess I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing most or all community colleges don't have a data science department. We probably have a math department, we probably have a computer science department, maybe a statistics department. So what this is going to take is retooling and retraining our existing faculty to be able to teach these courses. So Nathalie will speak more to that, but that is something to really think about and a challenge to overcome. Looking ahead, some of our future goals, we're hoping to kind of flesh this out, really thinking about creating a robust certificate, creating a degree that students can get, an associate's degree for transfer, which involves thinking about mathematics. You know, how do we create a pathway for incoming students to get them from this entry-level data science course to linear algebra relatively quickly? I should have mentioned I'm chair of the math department at my college, so I'm always thinking about the math side of things. So with that, I think I am done. Natalie, do you want me to keep the screen up and just use these slides, or do you want to share your own?
Sure. That'd be great.
Okay, so I will keep it up and I will go to the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Katia. Maybe you should be muted. I think there's an echo. Thank you. Oh, one back. The first slide. I think maybe I should just share. It's okay. Or you want to do it? Something is making noise in the background. Okay, perfect. All right. I'll just share. Let's see how. Chrome tab. Here we go. And here's my, can everybody see this? Let me, let's see if we present. Can everybody see this? All right, great, thank you. So my name is Nathalie Guebels, and I'm the Computer Science Department Chair at Santa Barbara City College, and I also teach computer science courses there, of course. And we are launching our first data science course this coming fall. And it's a cross-listed computer science mathematics course, and I'll be co-teaching it with one of my mathematics colleagues, Andrea Cullinan. So I'm very excited that I was able to recruit her to do this, because I think it definitely is an effort that is not just computer science. And I'm hoping that this, I've seen from other examples that is a really great way to teach it. So the curriculum is based on the Data 8 curriculum, and I really wouldn't have had any momentum to do this if it wasn't for the Central Coast Data Science Partnership opportunity, partnership that is funded by NSF, and it's about halfway, so it's a 3-year grant funded project. And we're about halfway, and it's between UCSD, Cal Poly, CSU San Bernardino, and Santa Barbara City College. And it really has given me funds, and not just funds, but also resources that I wouldn't have had to basically get this momentum with this first class. I was introduced to the UCSB curriculum that they have in their first course. And since this was based on the Data 8 curriculum, that's how I was introduced to UC Berkeley's curriculum. And I'm very excited to use that design for our course in the fall. Another thing that the partnership has been beneficial for is that it's really brought a first exposure to SBCC for our students. And for example, this summer, there's 4 SBCC students that are participating in an internship at UCSB, which is very exciting and a great opportunity for our students. So what are our long-term goals? Well, as part of my original idea with the partnership was just that first course, but really I would like to see an associate's degree, and in preferably one that an associate's degree to transfer, to provide this easy pathway to four-year institutions that have that major. Santa Barbara City College, just in 2020, I believe they had over 2,800 students who transferred to four-year institutions, of which so that's quite a bit. A lot of them are going to UC and CSU universities. So so basically, my goal is to focus on that associate's degree, and but of course there's also benefits of having a certificate, and I'm hoping to also go towards that associate's to transfer degree. Another goal is to train more faculty, and not just in computer science and mathematics. So at Santa Barbara City College, those are 2 different departments, but luckily we have the same dean, which has been very helpful, because again, something like this, you can't do this alone. It's very important to have other people at your campus that are supportive and want to participate. And so one of our goals is to train other faculty as well. We want to increase awareness and participation in that first data science course. And with all of this, there are definitely some things that I see will be challenges that we face. As Katia explained very well, there's a lot of curriculum proposal requirements and approvals, and that's a long process. And then there's articulation challenges, which then also feed in, as Katia mentioned, if students don't see that a course transfers, it's a lot harder to recruit them into a course. For example, I just have put the course on the schedule for this coming fall a couple of weeks ago, and submitted a nice email explaining the new course to the counselors, the academic counselors, but they were concerned that there was still pending articulation, and not sure how they were going to basically try to recruit students into it. So that's definitely a challenge there. A big concern is also that, as Katia mentioned, we need to train faculty. We don't have a data science department. Some community colleges don't even have separate math and CS departments. Sometimes it's under one department. Luckily at Santa Barbara City College, we do already have a pretty robust computer science department. And then we have a mathematics department. But really, a lot of our full-time faculty teach many courses. We're all teaching faculty. And 3 preps is not unusual. So you have 3 courses you have to teach. There's not much time to add more curriculum development on the plate, certainly when it's in a completely new field that requires training. So basically, I really encourage you to look for funding to get some release time, to really be able to create a new, a robust new course, and to get training for faculty, and not, because really, having 3 courses that you already have to teach, you really, it's not going to give a lot of time or flexibility. So finding funding is very important. I'm currently pursuing a couple of ways of getting grant money. And I'm in collaboration with El Camino College, who already started also their first course this past spring. But yeah, just a proposal doesn't mean that I have any funding yet. So I encourage you to look for ways of connecting with others, so you can share ideas and things like that. Now, a big challenge that I also see, and I mentioned that, is how we will not just recruit, but also make sure that our students thrive. Community college students are not UC-CSU students. We don't have an application process. Anyone can sign up for our courses. So you will really, we will need to also make sure, I think Katia already has a very nice idea of having some support in place for her first course this fall. But this definitely, I could see that being a challenge to make sure that our students at the community college level thrive. All right, well, with that, I will pass it on to Denise. Let me make sure let's see.
I think you should be able to share a screen with the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're going to present now.
No, sorry.
There should be an option to present.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Art Math Coordinator at Skyline College. We're located south of San Francisco. So we've been working on data science for a few years now at Skyline, and we created the Math 211 course that is based on Data 8 and offered through the math department. It's being offered for the first time this summer, and we have about 25 students. And so unlike the other colleges, I did put a prerequisite of a first level transfer math course, such as intro stats, trig, or pre-calculus on this, and I'll explain why later. And our class is UC and CSU transferable beginning in the fall. So like Katia said, this took a lot of planning. I think this started going through curriculum at the beginning of 2019. We're also, so Strong Workforce has been working on an applied AI certificate. And so we're gonna kind of tap into that and create a data science certificate in the fall. But what I've been focused on primarily is a transfer pathway. And this is actually in response to AB 705, where we are placing students directly into transfer math classes. And so the default placement for undecided or non-decidedly STEM students is intro stats, which I think is great. It's way better than intermediate algebra. But being located where we are, I think that, that's not great that students don't have a pathway into STEM because intro stat is a terminal course. And so I did get a grant to make our intro stat class project-based. We're using the passion-driven statistics curriculum and teaching them how to code. And we've been pretty aggressive in trying to recruit those students into our data science course. And so this pathway that we're trying to create is with CSU East Bay Statistics program, because they offer a BS in statistics with a concentration in data science that doesn't require calculus because they do a lot with simulation and coding. So to that end, that's why we have the prerequisite of transfer level math on our data science course. And then our computer science department has also just created an intro to computer programming in Python course. And so with those 3 courses, they can transfer to CSU East Bay. So one of the challenges that we face, just like Katia and Nathalie mentioned, is that there is no common set of courses at the 4-year institutions that we can create and have articulated easily. So to that end, for students who will do the calculus and can do that and are looking at other institutions besides CSU East Bay, what we've been advising students to do is to start with the math AST degree courses, and then consult the institutions they want to transfer to. And so, yeah, ideally we'd really like to create an AST degree because that would make it easier for our students and our counselors especially, because our students do go to our counselors primarily for advising. But we'd also like to train more faculty to teach these courses, and then really recruiting CS faculty to help and develop and teach courses. Right now we're sharing, we have half of a full-time CS faculty member who's shared with engineering. And so, he's building that, he's been mainly focused on building the engineering department. And so now, we do need some CS courses created, and that takes a lot of time and energy as well. So for future, we'd like to really recruit these students from our intro stat courses and, develop that pathway to CSU East Bay as well as other 4-year institutions. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Professor Han. So now if anyone has any questions, or we can go to the Q&A section. Okay, yeah. So Professor McGee raised a question about the challenges at the administrative level, like turf wars or department, dean provost buy-ins, and streamlining offerings across departments. A few of the panelists had answered those in the chats, but if anyone else would like to give their take on it.
The question about the 8-week courses at a community college, I think that that's what they're doing as a part of the applied AI program. I think that none of those classes are transferable and they're supposed to be 6 weeks. I don't know that much about it, but I can connect you with someone who does.
Speaking on the administrative level, just from our side, at our community college, the structure is department chairs and then deans. And then from there, there's higher up administrators. I've been working in really close partnership with my dean. He's the dean of STEM, so that covers math and computer science and all the other STEM disciplines. I've kept him abreast every step of the way, and he's been very supportive. His support has been helpful partly because our course is taught by both math and computer science faculty, and his support has meant that that was easier to navigate. However, beyond that, he's been very supportive, but that support hasn't translated so far into things like moving along more quickly or more funding, unfortunately. So it's really kind of looking for ways that you can get more funding and looking for ways that you can get more of that release time that I think are the key for what I'm thinking about and what our college is facing.
I'll add, yeah, I mentioned this in the chat, but it wasn't a turf war so much as it was like really coming to a common understanding, which I don't think there is necessarily agreement on. And so, but those discussions, and I think Erin said this too, they're really good discussions to have because and the goal is to try to focus on the similarities in content and not all of the differences and the little things, and also to really what really helped in our discussions, like this is a minor, not a major. And if we were creating a major, yes, I would have a completely different view of how many semesters of calculus or programming a student needed.
We lost Judith. Oh, there she is.
Can people still hear me? Sorry, my screen just went weird.
You just came back. Judith, I can hear you. I guess I would add in these conversations that Judith was talking about like, you know, you have diverse faculty coming together with different ideas of what is important in data science, and they're really nice conversations to have. My experience has been to have to protect the students because we ended up with a very large major that basically everything we required the kitchen sink, right? And that was something that we really had to work to guard the students' well-being in that sense. But I think what we've ended up with, it's a really nice balance in that the computer science, side, has learned to sort of appreciate sides of data science that they maybe didn't know as well. And then the statisticians, same thing, right? And so the process was really valuable.
Thank you. We have another question in the Q&A section, which is, this articulation thing seems really bureaucratic. Is there any way to smooth this process out and to get more articulations in place?
I guess I can say a couple words here. That would be great. And I mean, if we could, but I think it's just kind of being aware of the process first is the first step for community colleges. And also, I think the fact that we have now this collaboration with the California Alliance has been, for me at least, very helpful to understand what is showing up in which universities and how what I need to basically try to ask my articulation officer at my institution to look into. So I think the fact that we are collaborating and are meeting on a quarterly basis and hearing about the different programs that are there, that is definitely already something that I think will help me in the future. But as Katia said, I was also new to this whole system and not very aware of how long the timeline was for all of this. So now that I am, I'm going to be a lot more paying attention to those details on, okay, this is when my college reviews and this is when then it gets approved at the board and then it goes to the state and then it comes back. We, at the community college level in California, it's not like at a UC or CSU where you just, you have a number that you can use as a special topic course and you can try something out. No, we have to basically do the whole proposal, have it completely approved, and then we can start teaching the class. So it's it's a very different process, but at the same time, that's the only way that our students will really get the articulation to the courses at the different institutions. I think one big deal is that a lot of, as we saw from Erin and Hunter and Judith's presentations, every four-year college does something different. So if we want to give our students a lot of options, we really need to do our studying and our homework on what will optimize their pathway, their options, their pathways into those four-year colleges that are hard to get to. It's data science, you don't just transfer, or you're not always guaranteed transfer into the major at or computer science. So you really have to be competitive, you have to take the right courses and so on. And the associates to transfer degree, idea of an associates to transfer degree, actually, that is one thing that could help with guaranteeing at least the process on the CSU side, because the whole point of an associates to transfer degree is that you are guaranteed transfer at one CSU. It might not be the CSU you picked, but you're guaranteed, it basically guarantees a transfer at a CSU. I'm not understanding exactly if it's into a specific major, but at least it gives you a pathway to one four-year school. So I hope that helps with explaining that a little bit.
I was just going to chime in to say, yeah, I would recommend talking to your articulation officer early and often, and also like the curriculum chair as well, because there were a lot of local requirements that I didn't understand that I still haven't actually finished yet, because my classes have to be a part of a degree or certificate, and it kind of is, but not really. And there was a question about articulation for the fall or summer. So my class wasn't a GETC approved until, my class is a GETC approved for the fall. So it won't be UC transferable until the fall, but for CSUs, yes. And I think because we can designate CSU transferability locally, but we do have to wait for example, the B4 requirement. So my class was B4 approved, but then I also have the prerequisite of a transfer level math class on it. So you kind of don't really need it, but that actually did complicate it with the counselors because it didn't have that specific designation, even though I don't think it actually needed it. So we couldn't offer the class in the spring like we had intended. We had to wait for the summer. So yeah, there's a lot of communication that has to go on with the counseling faculty as well. Do we plan on dropping any topics? I don't know yet because we're offering for the first time this summer.
Yeah, same thing. The goal is not to drop topics at the SBCC for sure. and at least that's how we have our course outline in our course outline as well. We have the core topics are in there. But yeah, there's a lot of information, a lot of homeworks and things like that. There could be a slight variation where we just have one less lab or homework one week or another, but I don't foresee any major topic drops, at least in the Data 8 curriculum. Yeah.
One of the things. Oh, sorry.
I was going to just say, like UCSD offers Data 8, a Data 8 version, and we're a quarter system. So we have to cram it in 10 weeks. And so we do drop topics from Data 8. And we have found that the sections on some of the, like bootstrapping, for example, is fairly sophisticated. And, you know, we've chosen to drop that in favor of really trying to get students to understand like variation in the context of hypothesis testing and being able to articulate what a p-value. And so we dropped bootstrapping, for example, and then also dropped classification, just because they'll see it elsewhere later. But I do agree, even at UCSD, like there are parts of Data 8 which are quite difficult to really understand well.
One thing I wanted to add, as I mentioned earlier, we trained 2 professional tutors when we were doing some of our faculty training, and we asked them to actually look at it from the point of view of the students they work with now, especially students who are in those entry-level statistics courses and the sorts of questions that they are asking and the sorts of troubles they have. You know, how would they fare? Where would they struggle? Where would they need more support? What modified or perhaps dropped? And we're even considering for future, you know, generations of this class, with AB 705, one thing that many colleges did is we created co-requisite support courses that students enroll in, that they get kind of support in addition to whatever course that they're taking. So that's an embedded tutor, lots of other things. And so we're actually thinking for future generations, possibly writing a co-requisite support course that will go with Math 108. If we're discovering that there are just groups of students who need extra support, whether it's in the basic math side of things or in the basic programming side of things, to help them succeed. So we're thinking ahead, but we haven't run the course yet, so we don't know exactly what will happen.
Yeah, is Katia. We have in our mathematics department, we offer statistics, and we also offer statistics with support. So students can pick just the regular statistics or the statistics with support, where they get additional help. And I foresee that if we find that students are struggling with some of the material, that we will probably create a support course that goes together with that statistics, with our new data science course. I do not want to drop any topics because I wanted to articulate to Data 8, and I wanted to articulate to 2 quarters, or maybe with a little extra at a quarter system school. So I do not want to drop any topics. That's definitely one of my goals, to make sure that the whole point is for students to have an easy pathway and not stay at the community college for too long. And also once they transfer, that they can get their bachelor's degree and not spend 10 years before they get there, right? So we have to keep that in mind as well. And then just if we see students struggle, we'll just have to add additional support courses. We also have an intro to programming course. And I think that that is really meant for the beginner programmer that has never programmed before. And if students do struggle with the programming part, I would recommend taking that course either in parallel or before the data science course. But we only put an intermediate algebra requirement on our course. So it's basically anyone could sign up as long as they've had intermediate algebra, so, or equivalent.
I guess I could mention that there's a question about how UCSD teaches Data 8 or version, because it is quite a bit different. And has the adopting Data 8 panel happened yet? I can't remember off the top of my head. But regardless, we have a faculty member who actually is going to be presenting on our version of Data 8. And so we don't use the data science module. We use what's called baby pandas, which is pandas with a lot of the functions taken out. So it's not so disorienting. And because of that, we've had to sort of write our own book in the same spirit of Data 8, which is still a work in progress. And it is not a bit lean in the way that we teach in practice. Is we have inferential thinking like the actual book, and then we have sort of this is how to use baby pandas, like, as you write, it's a bit of a thin tutorial on baby pandas, and make them kind of go between the two. But that's not that's just a very temporary thing. It just takes a lot of effort to write a good book, right? So I would expect in there should be a fair amount of work post-summer on that, where it's a bit more standalone.
Thank you so much, Professor Frankel. So we can wrap up soon. So would anyone like to make any concluding remarks? If there aren't any more questions. Actually, there's one last question we can have. Do any of you plan to have an open-ended project as a part of your ES class?
Open-ended projects are a part of every single one of our stats and data science courses, and we try to make them called course-based undergraduate research experiences are extremely vital for success. There's ways to manage them that isn't overwhelming for you, and so I'm happy to share some of those ideas and things like that too. Folks are interested. I also put a plug-in for USCOT's 2021, which is virtual and has a lot of workshops and presentations on a lot of these ideas as well. It's only $25 to register.
On the theme of open-ended data science projects, and for those of you maybe still struggling to get buy-in from all the right people, I would say either start hosting or get your students involved in DataFest. So this is like no course proposal processes, like no programs or anything, but it's just a data science hackathon, like every spring. And it's just exciting and fun, and like can attract, kind of sponsors, donors, students, interest, all kinds of stuff. And it's all really related to data science, and it's open-ended and stuff like that. And doesn't have to be, statistics and computer science. Like students from across campus can participate, and it's a hugely awesome and fun event that I wish was around when I was a student, and things like that, and can be maybe a weird, but still maybe decent entry point for data science on your campus. If you just Google, I can put a link in the chat, but if you just Google ASA Data Fest, I'll put a link in the chat though.
I'd also add a sort of additional comment about open-ended projects and courses, especially existing courses, which, like perhaps students need a little bit of hand-holding or structure because it's new to them. And one thing that I really have found some success in is, for example, the first time I taught, Data 8, our version of Data 8, you have the 2 projects or so per, we use 2 of the projects per quarter when we teach it. And I will take something that looks a lot like that, which is structured in a notebook, but it is like one data set that you kind of guide through. But I'll add a few questions in which give students a little more opportunity to actually explore the data themselves after they've been given the introduction in the structure of the project. And so, it just might be a question that's, asking about, okay, so can you draw your own questions or conclusions, regarding this topic that you've been looking at, right? And a little bit of guidance, but also like they get to add perhaps a little bit of their own creative flair.
Thank you so much. There's a follow-up to that question, which was whether students need to acquire their own data for these projects.
I mean, in our classes that are very much project-based, that often they do have to get their own data. In one of my courses that I have, which is somewhere between Data 8 and Data 100 at that level, I'll have students, for example, they do this natural language processing on Brick. And everybody is doing the same analysis or similar analysis on the same data, but they all actually have to do the collection and do that stuff themselves. And there are other, similarly, if, depending on the amount of freedom that they have in like proposing what they're working on, I, will have them collect it themselves, but also check in like a lot, because that is one of the biggest problems that like you come across is that, oh, I thought it would be really easy to collect this data and it wasn't, right? And so having structure and check in there is really important so that they actually get past that hurdle and can start working with it.
There's also, there's tons of data available. For librarians, they often have access to data or know good data sources, or can even compile. I've had our librarian compile resources of government data, free data, all sorts of data resources for students to find, to go and find data versus collecting it themselves. And then your university probably has a ton of data in some department or another that could use some analysis. Local nonprofits and schools, if you have like a United Way or like a 211 line, they often have tons of data from phone calls. So it's not, and Tidy Tuesday, if you want something more accessible, especially I use this in my lower division classes, Tidy Tuesday, if you don't know about it, is a great opportunity where there's a curated data set every week posted. And the focus is visualizations, but you can kind of do anything with it. And some are big, some are small, but all of it is helpful.
Thank you so much, Professor Tanner. There's a question in the chat about whether you could share about the collaborations and whether it's like one project per student or it's more like groups.
Our capstone projects are group projects. I think whether they're individual or student projects probably depends on the course and like what the goals are from the experience, and how many students you have, like what the scales are, for these things, because certain things are harder than others. Like Alex mentioned in the chat just now, for our capstone experience, which is our big, we have projects in other courses, I think, but these are kind of the projects that we like to talk about and are the most exciting. We're finding clients and hence kind of data sets and problems and stuff like that for these projects at least 4 to 6 months in advance. And then creating student groups in the fall for them to work on these projects in the 20 weeks between kind of January and June. And that's kind of our setup. Finding data sets for like kind of more individual or like, partner projects and other courses and things like that, as far as I'm concerned, usually that doesn't end up being too much of a problem, but I agree with Erin, does involve or should involve more checkup, because the data finding process can take longer than they expect. And there are so many resources out there. Google has a data set search engine now. Data.gov is a very good one. Vasilis mentioned that. But we've got Kaggle, Dryad. Like, there are so many data repositories out there that I can't, it'd be hard to list them all. So.
Thank you so much. And thank you to our panelists for the super interesting presentations. We really enjoyed them. Would anyone like to give any concluding remarks?
Since I haven't heard it come from Eric, join the Slack. If he hasn't said it all week or whatever, join. There's a data science community, I think, for this workshop and this huge group. Join the Slack if you're not part of the Slack. That's one really good way to stay part of the conversation and engage and stay in touch, I think. There are tons of other things that we've all provided links to, I think, and that are really awesome. But if you were going to do anything, I think it would be join the Slack. So at least you have a connection back to all of this throughout the year.
Yeah, I would say start anywhere. Whether taking your interest at class and just, adding in some simple extra bit of modeling or just start somewhere because this is a crucial skill and it's not just for data science majors, it's for everybody. And then there are, through professional organizations, especially if you're a community college instructor, I don't know if there's any K-12, a lot of times workshops and trainings are free or very low cost for those particular groups. So the American Statistical Association, I mentioned US COTS, there's a lot of low cost, low entry point training for you if your background is not data science or programming, for you to go and get started with that. And then also reach out to your local four-year university as well, and it's possible we can put something together for you. So those would be my recommendations.
Yep. Thank you so much. Yeah, we can wrap up early. And there are links to all the presentations in the chat, and they should also be on the website after the panel is over. So thank you so much for coming.
Everyone.